Hello everybody, Incon here. In today's video, we're going to be talking about early game versus late game. When is early game? When is late game? And most importantly, what's more important? Should I be trying to build and trying to play and trying to pick my gods for the early game, or should I be picking them for late game? I'm of course going to be focusing, guys, this kind of around ranked play, which should transition way closer to casual play than, like, say, talking about competitive relevances, because ranked and casuals are way closer than anything to competitive. So most of my content from now on, whether it's gods, guides, all this stuff, I'm going to really make sure I focus in on the ranked and casual scene, because obviously that's what everybody's playing. So when is early game right now in Smite? Well, the early game in Smite right now, guys, is right around the level 1 marker where you're here in your lane, nothing's even spawned yet. This is your early game all the way to right around the 7-minute marker, a little bit earlier, a little bit later, depending on the game. And that's going to be your early game focus, where you're going to be heavily involved in things like laning phase. You're going to be heavily involved in your very basic game stuff. You're not looking at objectives, you're not looking at team fights, you're simply looking at a little bit of fighting in lane, a little bit of jungles, all that kind of stuff. So why does early game matter? Well, early game matters very strongly, especially in the duo lane above all lanes, because you're going to do this. You're going to outclear your lane. Oh my god, look how good I am. I outcleared the bot. You're going to outclear the lane, and that means you're going to immediately come over here, and you're going to snag this purple buff. Snagging this purple buff in the early game is absolutely detrimental to the enemy team, because what's going to happen in a standard game is, boom, I clear that buff. I'm going to have just about this much experience. Once I clear that buff, you come into lane, you kill 1 or 2 creeps, you get level 2 in the duo lane with your partner, they're level 1, oh my god, they're still level 1, and they're dead because you had purple buff XP on them and they didn't. Oh gosh, you killed them. Now you get an entire wave, and then you go get your own purple buff, and now you're snowballing out of control. The duo lane in Season 5 is notoriously bad for snowball compared to every other lane. So if you don't get anything else from this video when you're watching, early game in duo lane matters. But Incon, I'm not a duo laner, I'm a mid laner. Does early game matter for me? The answer is yes, early game still matters for you, but not quite as much. Duo lane is going to actually be the most. Middle lane is going to matter a little bit, and then all the way over to the solo lane is actually barely going to matter at all, and we'll talk about that. So mid lane, what happens? You out clear your mid lane really hard, bada bing, bada boom, things are looking cool, you're destroying the clear. You've got a couple options. You can look to get a little bit of poke on the enemy mid laner, that's not bad. If you're really feeling yourself, you can go try to do the enemy red buff, but it's a really risky play. What I prefer is when you full clear mid, you got the clear on the enemy, they've got to sit there and keep clearing mid, right? You run straight to your red buff. This is going to allow you to secure your red buff easy peasy from the mid lane. You come over, you grab it, bada bing, bada boom, no worries. Best case scenario, they stayed to do the wave, and now they're starting the next wave, and you have red buff and they don't. You can go to force the fight. You should have more damage than them because you have red buff and they don't. Or the other scenario is they went to go do their red buff late, so you come into this lane early, you still get the entire wave, they miss part of the wave when they come back, so they still lose out in a little bit of experience. And then of course junglers are going to be here by that point. They're coming to do the right mid harpies, so you're either contesting over right mids or you're going over with your jungler to left, and you should be able to secure your left side harpies no matter what as well, which is also quite nice. But Incon, I'm the solo laner. Does early game matter for me? The answer is not really that much. In the solo lane, you can get away with the most of the late game characters. This is why you're starting to see a lot of stuff over in solo lane, like Geb solos. You know, Divios notoriously has been doing stuff like that. You're seeing a lot of Guardian solos. A lot of characters whose maybe their early game isn't that good at all, but their late game is good. Why is that? It's because the first wave clear in solo lane really doesn't matter. You come over to solo lane, bada bing, bada boom, you're clearing your wave. You're like, I mean, I kind of cleared the wave. It's looking decent. Well, your jungler is actually over here at your blue buff. So all you have to do is walk over here to your blue buff. You're basically standing here if you want to. You're getting credit for this while your jungler is doing your blue buff. You're actually getting credit for both. And then you're getting level 2 off the wave. Oh my gosh, he cleared your blue buff for you. You come over, you snag your blue. You didn't have to do any work. Because you can't really lose the blue buff anymore, from the solo lane, because there's no way for the solo laners basically to clear the wave faster than the jungler is going to be getting to the blue buff to do them. It means that you're super safe to get your first blue buff, which really stabilizes the lane, which allows you to pick those later game characters. Solo lane is the only lane that I would say you basically never have to worry about it. Pick late game to your heart's content. So when does late game start? Late game right now in Smite is starting right around, I would say, the 18-ish minute marker to maybe the 22-minute-ish marker. This is where, for basically the rest of the game, you're looking at team fights, team fight objectives. It's not about being in your lane pushing. It's not so much about the 1v1s. It's not so much about the ganks. It's a lot more about 3v3, 4v4, 5v5 fights that you're looking for in the game. So this is where your later game characters are going to thrive. This is where your Gebs for, your solo laners that you're running, or even your supports if you're running Geb support, but you're going to have a hard time with the early game. This is where your Aphrodites and your Hells, those types of characters come online. You get to that team fight stage, they really start to thrive. But in ranked, in casuals, how often are your games going really this long? And I want you to think about it. Genuinely, sometimes you're going to have some really good games that go back and forth, right? And maybe by that point, it gets really late. You get like a 40-minute game. And because you have a late game team comp, you come out on top. But from personal experience, and from playing the game for so long and for knowing a lot about Season 5, and especially playing from the duo lane, I can tell you that early game has a huge, huge impact on the match, and this is why. So, your team, right, you pick a late game comp, your enemy picks an early game comp, okay? You're thinking to yourself, man, we make it to a team fight stage, we're so good. We've got AoEs, we've got CC, we've got some heals, we're ready. They've got a lot of single target damage. They're looking for early game snowball and ganks, okay? Your team's all ready, you're pumped, you get into your game, your duo lane dies, okay? They get first blooded, double killed, okay? Your mid laner goes VVG, GG, okay? Your jungler goes, oh, I'm in mid lane. Your duo lane says, wow, jungler, why didn't you come gank? Your jungler says, wow, duo, why did you lose the 2v2? It's a MOBA. Everybody knows about it. People start to get salty really early. Really, really early. And once you're salty, everybody knows that's it. It's done. Like, once the team environment goes salty, it goes south. And there's no way to come back. So the number one reason why you want to go an early game comp is just to prevent the early moaning and groaning that you know at least one person's going to throw out, and then you have to mute them, and now you're losing communication. So that's the number one reason why you immediately want to go to the early game. The second reason why you want to go early game, guys, right now in this meta, unless you're over in the solo lane, is because it's going to help out the other people on your team. You can't necessarily rely on the people on your team picking early game, right? You're going to have your Artemis boy. He says, dude, I'm really good at Artemis. I'm ranked 47, and it's all I can play. I'm going to go play Artemis ADC, right? That's going to happen. It just does. So if you're thinking to yourself, well, maybe I just go Geb and we just pair super well for the late game, and then you guys get farmed in the early game, and then your Artemis bro goes, I've only got one mode that I know how to play on, so I'm going to keep playing aggressive because I don't know how to play passive, because maybe you're a newer player. Maybe they have a very small god pool. Maybe they're kind of newish to Conquest. There's a plethora of reasons why people won't know how to change up their gameplay. So your Artemis bro keeps walking forward. You're a level 3 Geb. You're 4 levels down now. You've got a level 1 shield you're throwing on him for CC immunity. But he's getting brutalized by a Fenrir because he's Artemis, he can't jump away, and he's dying every single time. If you were a more aggressive support in that situation, you're an Erlang, well, maybe you can kill the Fenrir before the Fenrir kills your Artemis. So it's going to help your team be less reliant on them having to pick the early game because you're picking the early game. And we know if you don't pick the early game, now you're relying on your team to do it, and then you got to watch out for Artemis, bro. So why is that relevant? Why is the early game Salt relevant? Why is the early game Artemis bro getting behind that doesn't have two different modes relevant? This comes together, guys, and it's the reason these all come together. It's the reason why I recommend you focus on early game when you're playing Smite, especially in Conquest. Well, I mean, this is specifically for Conquest, for your casuals and your rank, and it's because of F6ing. just because you have a late game comp doesn't mean you're ever going to make it there. 100% of your games that you play, you will be playing at the 0-minute marker in the 4-minute marker, right? You're always going to be playing at those times. There's no guarantee you're going to be playing at the 25, 30, 35-minute marker because people disconnect, happens all the time, even in ranked. People rage quit, people mute everybody on the team, and people spam F6. And if people on your team are salty, I, for one, love to just get out of the game. I'm one of those people. If my team is raging at each other, I have no desire to keep playing for fake internet points. I say, dude, if we're calling each other names, let's just smash the F6 button and just skedaddle. We're obviously not friends. And that's why you should be focusing on your early game. Because if you could put the pressure on the enemy team, it's not like they're a bunch of bros. They are in the same position you are, which means if you can put the pressure on their team early, you're going to get them to rage quit, you're going to get them to DC, you're going to get them to F6 long before they ever get to the late game. And so their late game comp meant nothing, and your early game comp meant everything. That's early game versus late game, guys. That's why all the reasons why I think your early game is going to matter. Gave you some in-game reasons how the snowball actually happens. I tried to put in a bit of functionality, showing, how you clear the buff and how it snowballs your levels, that kind of stuff on top of the more like theoretical, rage quits and stuff like that to give you guys all the reasons. I'm trying to make these videos more helpful, even more better. It's going to take me a while to get into it, but please, guys, if you found this helpful, let me know. And if you have any ideas that you would like to know more about, or that you would have liked to know more about when you were a newer player to Smite, please let me know down in the comments, guys. I do read those. And if somebody has a comment down there that you agree with, hit the like button because it'll send it up through the comments, and there's a greater chance that I read it if it's not like the 60th comment, if it's like one of the top 5. So thank you guys for all your help. I appreciate it. This was kind of a preamble, guys. I want to start talking about who are the early game gods, who you should be looking for, where they thrive in what lane, how you should be looking to play them. So I hope this was helpful for you guys so we can start to talk about those early game gods and how you want to play them to make sure you snowball in your Conquest games. Thank you guys so much for your support, and as always, have a twitching day, y'all. Thank you for watching the video. If you liked the video, please go ahead and hit the like button. And if you like the channel, go ahead and subscribe and ring that bell, guys, in order to get notifications for our uploads. If you want to go the extra mile to help support the Twitchiest community, you can always go to our Twitch channel at twitch.tv/Incon and use your Twitch Prime sub there. It's a great way to help support the community. Thank you so much for watching, and as always, have a twitching day, y'all.